Braveheart Tegan, it's Peter Davison's Doctor. The Edwardian cricket here, before Matt Smith the youngest Doctor with a pleasant open face and decorative vegetable. He is sadly for some fans at the bottom of their lists of best Doctors, unlike his predecessor who was rated highly. His tenure has its pros and cons, as do all Doctors, ranging from excellent to good to vanilla to insulting. But I don't mark him as my least favourite. He was the first Doctor I met, and like Sylvester McCoy, a really decent fella. And shame on the fans who shoved him off of Twitter. I respectfully disagree with him, yes, but I would never carry on like that. Back to the point, Davison in my eyes made a really good Doctor. He has the best ending story, one of the strongest Cybermen stories, and one of the top 2 anniversary specials. I liked his more human approach to the role, which was appropriate after an otherworldly Tom Baker. He's also a lot more vulnerable. You feel bad for him with all the death and misery that sooner or later finds its way into his life. But I'm not talking about Earthshock or Frontios or Resurrection of the Daleks, a polarizing choice indeed. No, I'm here to talk about a Doctor Who episode that means a lot to me, The 5 Doctors. The 20th anniversary special broadcast as part of Children in Need. If memory serves correctly, next to the Sontaran experiment, it was my first ever exposure to classic Doctor Who. It was also the first ever Doctor Who DVD, which I still have today, though it's scratched beyond repair now. These screenshots are from the special edition DVD, which includes a hidden commentary by David Tennant, Phil Collinson and Helen Rayner. It's a surreal experience listening to a later Doctor and the series producer fanboying over its brilliance whilst the script editor laughs awkwardly at their geek cred. But I'm glad it exists. And why shouldn't they? The 5 Doctors, though technically 4 and a bit because Tom Baker didn't want to return, is one of the best things ever. All of Doctor Who's strongest elements are on show here. A great cast with the regulars of Jana Fielding, Mark Strickson and Davison himself on fine form. Nobly Tegan, who for some reason isn't bored off her arse. Yeah, I was never mad about Tegan. No disrespect to Fielding, but I think this type of character is done much better and funnier as Donna. And then there's the return of John Pertwee, very fitting, as his run was the first to have a multi-Doctor story, and Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane. It makes my heart sore to see her again, and utilised much better than in K9 and Company. Don't worry, 80s kids, Sarah Jane Smith will get a much better spin-off in 20 years' time. Then you have Patrick Troughton and Nicholas Courtney. The Brigadier previously appeared in season 20 in the shockingly poor Mawdryn Undead, and stepping in for the late William Hartnell, Richard Hurndall as the earliest Doctor, and Carl Ann Ford as his now older granddaughter Susan. They pay tribute to Hartnell by including him before the title credits. His one-day speech also works, as it's his Goodbye Susan. He reunites with her on the Death Zone as the Dalek rolls along. How poetic. With Tom Baker's absence, the line-up of the script was changed significantly. Of course, the Doctor and Susan were always going to be a part of the special, but originally the Pertwee Doctor would be paired with Lethbridge Stewart, like in the good old days, and Sarah Jane Smith would meet her Doctor again. Imagine how that would have played out. I also think Jamie would have gone with Troughton, but Hines couldn't work around his Emmerdale farm schedule, so he has a cameo as an illusion. Originally featuring next to Deborah Watling, who would have given the game away by referring to Lethbridge Stewart as the Brigadier, when she only knew him as Colonel. The change in pairing is evident in this scene also, as there's a line clearly meant for Pertwee, where the Doctor remembers that Jamie and Zoe were made to forget him in the War Games, and so one of my least favourite concepts in all of Doctor Who was born. Season 6B. To be brief, I really am not gone on this idea. For one, I think it's incredibly insulting to a perfect farewell, and secondly, it's very indulgent and excessive, and you're writing adventures that won't matter at the end of the day because Spirit from Space still exists. A friend of mine has his own explanation for the Doctor in this story. He says the Doctor asked before his fate was decided to visit his friends and the Brigadier was last. A bit of a stretch, you could say, but my headcanon accepts it. And the 2 Doctors was tidied up by a Big Finish audio, and Big Finish is canon, so I'm accepting that. But if that's your cup on tea, that's alright. I just think it cheats an impactful event, a bit like something else. And no, I'm not doing that yet because I would need a ridiculous amount of time to go through it. Sarah Jane's arrival in the Death Zone was also changed. Originally she was to appear in a deserted and ruined town where Autons come out of the fog and menace her. That would have been cool. And also a circle would be made here in that every John Pertwee era companion would have met the Autons. Instead she loses her balance and falls down a slope. Shame. Among the returning iconic antagonists is the Master, or Anthony Ainley as he's known. And unlike the majority of the characters' appearances in 80s Doctor Who, he's better written, but then this is a Terrance Dicks script and he gets the character, and I would argue Doctor Who as a whole, more than anyone. Had Roger Delgado not tragically passed away, he would definitely have loved playing against Pertwee. I like the little dialogue between the two. The Doctor asks if he's regenerated since they last met, and Ainley replies, "Not exactly." And you just know Pertwee's scarecrow retort was intentional. And I appreciate, as bizarre as this might sound, that the Herndl Doctor doesn't recognise the Master. Although Herndl plays a much more of a curmudgeon than his predecessor, he is the wisest of the Doctors, which I feckin' love. The youngest Doctor played by the most senior actor. It's a fantastic contradiction. To lose is to win, and he who wins shall lose. But the special really clicks with me because it has all the elements I'd want to see and I always liked in Doctor Who. I love the first Doctor, I love the history of the Time Lords. I love the concept of Rassilon not being dead but sleeping, because that opens loads of different interpretations to the fans. I love that Bruce is granted immortality, but in a much darker way than he would have anticipated. And I really appreciate Richard Franklin and Caroline John's cameo appearances. Credit to Uncle Terence, as he's known to the fans, for acknowledging Liz Shaw, as she's an underrated companion who I think deserved more adventures. It's a little bit sad though that this is Caroline's last appearance in Doctor Who. She'll do a couple of BBV direct-to-video spin-offs and Big Finish audios, but I would have loved to see her in the Sarah Jane Adventures before that show came to an end and before her own death. And the director, Peter Moffat no relation, really gets the most out of the locations used for the Death Zone and the Eye of Orion. And can we all agree the TARDIS revamp is a gorgeous design. The console was well overdue a facelift, and it must have taken the Doctor ages to do it. I personally believe some time has passed between Chameleon's introduction and this, and also because I'm not accepting a really crap story leads directly into this. But I couldn't review the 5 Doctors, I couldn't end it without giving the Rastan Warrior robot a shout out. And I love the scene where it mows down the Cybermen. There's even one fella vomiting up porridge. It was an 11th hour edition when divisive script editor Eric Sayward brought up the issue of the Doctor and Sarah Jane getting to the Dark Tower too easily, but it's one of the most memorable aspects of the special. It is a disappointment that Tom Baker wouldn't return, and it's very obvious that the footage from Shada was not shot for the anniversary special. They corrected the publicity picture on the special edition release, but I'm not sure if they count. The 5 Doctors is an entertaining example of Doctor Who, one of the very best commemorations of the programme's birth. It's a highlight of the 5th face of Doctor Who. Looking at it critically, I'd give it 9.5 because I would have given it 10 otherwise.